Well, we have a treat here tonight. We got Ken Van Liew on the call. And before we kick things off, I want to send everybody to your web page, Ken, 11millionairesecrets.com. And Ken has offered a freebie there as well as some time with him. So you better take a look at that and learn a little bit about Ken. We're probably going to cover some of that stuff on that page, as Ken has a lot to tell us, and there's quite a story involved with Ken. So I really appreciate your time, Ken. Thanks for joining me here today.
Well, thank you so much. The appreciation is likewise. I really appreciate your time and allow me to give some value to the listeners. That's what it's all about.
So you're in real estate investing, a developer, wholesaling. I mean, you've done probably everything under the sun when it comes to real estate investing. But, one of the things that I think is interesting is that you started off as a civil engineer, design engineer. How did you go from civil design engineer to real estate investing?
Great question. So first of all, it took me a while to become a civil engineer. It's an interesting story. So, thank God for my wife. I met her taking Calculus 2 for the third time. And then when I finally got into engineering school, I created the 6-year plan. So it took me 6 years to get out of a civil engineering program. And I graduated, around the top of my class. And I went out and got that civil engineering degree. But that last year, I was in a contest and I won a design development award of a subdivision, and it planted the seed. And as I graduated, I literally worked for a design engineering firm for a very short time because some of my summer experiences, I worked in construction and I liked construction, and I had an opportunity to build my first building at a young age. And, I went into the construction arena as I was training as a civil engineer, at least getting this 4 years experience. And when I finally passed the license after taking the test once again, I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. I was a hard worker, passed it on the 5th time. And by that time, I had already become a licensed site safety manager in New York City, which allows you to build 100,000 square foot skyscrapers. And, I never went back into engineering. So I started my career, worked really hard to, I would say, get a type of thinking that was able me to become successful, but only practiced engineering for a short time. But the engineering license opened up a lot of doors for me for what I'm doing today as a developer.
Right. Well, you mentioned, you 16 years later, is this that development that you were 17? It was a $17 million project.
That project was in 2000 when I was, 5 years after having this thought while standing on the top of a 30-story building saying, there's got to be more than this because, I just had twins. And I was like $100,000 in debt. Mm-hmm. And I kept working in the corporate world, but I guess it was, 6 or 7 years later, 2000, where I went out on my own. And because I only knew how to build big projects, where most people go into real estate and start out by buying, a residential house or wholesaling and then working themselves up the ladder. I found myself thinking like, wow, if I can build a $10 million project, I could actually pay myself a 5% fee. That's $500,000. I could build it myself. I could pay myself 10% general condition, 3% profit. So here I was looking at it. Wow, build a $10 million project, make $1.6, $1.8 million. And if you can get some ownership out of it, that would be great. So I kind of came in from a different approach. I call it top-down thinking, kind of figuring it out, and that's a little bit how I got into real estate. It was an unusual path, I guess you would say.
Well, it sounds like it's an unusual path for the mindset. I mean, to even to consider that and to have the confidence to make that leap and hope the money is there. I mean, what did you is this something that's natural to you, or do you have to work on maintaining this kind of mindset?
Yeah, it was never natural. And I probably didn't even have the mindset to at that point when I was moving forward, because back then I was driven, by the money and being able to work for myself. And, you got to get out of debt and create a future for your family. And the funny thing was, is that the way that thinking was back then, which was, I guess you would say, more fee oriented versus ownership oriented,
Mm-hmm.
is what enabled me to make the transition. Because the beautiful part of the transition was when I came home and told my wife I was going to quit my job that was paying me about 175 grand a year. She wasn't too happy, because I said, well, I'm going to pay I said, I got this taxation filtration system. I'm going to pay myself $5 grand a month, and I'm going to filter that through. And, I'm not going to need much revenue because all my expenses are going to be paid through these companies, corporation, C Corp, S Corp, LLCs. And I literally did that. And out of the box, 4 months into my own company, I landed it was a 7 or 8 acre site, 12-acre site that I did the assisted living. And I met this dentist with a certificate in need, quit my job, was able to raise 100 grand and figured I'll pay myself $5 grand a month. And with the rest, I'm going to go figure out how to get my first property. And 4 months later, I had a 12-acre site, which I signed a development agreement with myself for an assisted living, 113 beds. And I was paying myself $27,000 a month development fee right out of the box. So that's what kind of changed my life, and then I was fortunate to build that project, do exactly what I said before, pay myself general conditions. I put a staff behind me, project managers, supers, prefabricated the building, built that thing in 13 months, paid myself another, fee, which I had to split with a guy that put a bond on the deal, which was required by the financing. And I financed it through the New Jersey EDA, which is kind of like a entity. Mm-hmm. It's a state versus a federal. And I pulled the thing off. It was like a miracle, it really was.
And then you turned those profits around, and you were going to start another development waterfront property, right? And yeah. But then 9/11 happened.
Yeah, exactly. We rolled those profits. I was celebrating. We bought Bay Street Landing. And I was with Tony Robbins in Hawaii. And, unfortunately, I lost one of my best friends who worked for Cantor Fitzgerald. He was in the World Trade Center. I lost the Bay Street Landing property. And that was, the first strength building exercise. They say if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger, And I'm glad that happened then, because, in 2008, when it was worse, I would have never been able to weather that storm,
Mm-hmm. So did this all happen, or at least the start of it happen, when you were at that Tony Robbins event?
Yeah. My first, I guess you would say, cross body block, I had just finished the assisted living and did very well. And I think it was about 9 months later, I was celebrating in Hawaii, and we had bought Bay Street Landing, and it was E911 when the towers collapsed. So, that's when I lost Bay Street Landing. And, it was, I guess you would say, my first challenge, because, for a year and a half, I wanted to be a developer, but, things were a little crazy. So I found myself doing some construction jobs. I actually renovated the country club that I had joined in order to raise money, which kept me busy. I did some renovations at a geriatrics facility. And then, we finally got our feet back on the ground again,
So what were your initial thoughts like when that happened? It sounds like at that moment, everything's falling apart, and it had to have been a fairly dark place. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I think we go back to the initial conversation. That's when the mindset really started to build stronger, because I remember me sitting in a garage coming back from the Tony Robbins. It was, and I had a coach, right? Because, you go to these Tony Robbins events, they give you a coach. And I'm saying, I'm in trouble. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off. He's like, you got any money in your pocket? He goes, go inside and flush it down the toilet. So I'm literally like flushing money down the toilet, and he's trying to tell me, don't get connected to the money, that'll all work itself out. And that's when I started to, realize that I can't attach all my emotions to my bank account. And, I built skyscrapers in New York City, completed this major project. And, you can't blame what occurred on yourself, which easily happens. And that's where, I really took what I had learned at Life Mastery with Tony Robbins and started to practice that kind of mindset, because little did I know in 2008, I was going to be partners with Lehman Brothers and we were going to lose like $300 million in one day, So, the Tony Robbins training, because after that event at Life Mastery, I followed Tony for years, doing a lot of his shows with him and, belonging to the power team group in New York City and surrounding myself with that kind of, that enthusiasm. And it was necessary at that time in my life because, when you grow up working in the World Trade Center for the Port Authority on the 51st floor, and then you watch while you're sitting in Hawaii with Tony Robbins, something collapse that your friend is inside, it gets you pissed off, and it gets you confused, because, you're fighting with, your anger, is definitely stopping you from what, you need to do to lead forward when something like that happens. And, I thank, God that I was with Tony Robbins that day, we got stuck in Hawaii and then we walked on a 45-foot lane of fire and then climbed a 50-foot telephone pole. And on that day, I weighed 246 pounds. I weigh 174 right now. So, it changed my life, from every standpoint, health, fitness, well-being, mindset. I could go build skyscrapers, no matter what, and I went back and, just kept doing it.
Yeah. We've been told time and time again, you're the sum of the people you hang out with. In this situation, it, like you said, it seems like it was almost a blessing to be in that situation at that particular moment.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. I mean, I remember, at 4:00 in the morning when I got the phone call and I remember the vigil that day, because they put us in like rooms by state, and New York had a couple hundred people. And there was a young lady who was the fiance for Ludwig, who was the vice president of Cantor Fitzgerald. And when we went into the ceremony that morning, because everybody was trying to get out of Hawaii and you couldn't leave Hawaii. So Tony, called us into the open arena and we all held hands. It was about 3,000 of us holding hands, singing Amazing Grace. And it was one of the most powerful moments, and it, it inspired us because, we were stuck, and then we were in a room with 200 people, and Ann Solar, whose fiance, perished, allowed the audio to be played where he was actually talking from the tower burning. And, it was a surreal moment, And I realized today, looking back, I didn't focus on that because Tony says, listen, your feelings are going to be based on what you focus on. So when I came back, I didn't put closure, I guess you could say, to that visual I saw that day of the towers coming down until the 10-year anniversary. And I'm glad to say that, it allowed me to focus on where I should have been focused on and bringing people to the next level, instead of getting stuck, in what happened. I was an Eagle Scout advisor at that time. And the father of one of my Eagle Scouts perished, and it was hard, man. Hard not to cry.
Right. Yeah. This is just attests to the mental fortitude that you had to deal with here. I mean, with the business having issues and then 9/11 and people that you personally know being so directly impacted. I mean, it had to have been a really hard time.
Yeah. So, it's something we look back at now. And I could actually say my friend that I built Brooklyn Union Gas headquarters, he was the project manager. I was the super, built the World Trade Center for Larry Silverstein. Another dear friend of mine who trained me in the business has done over 73 towers in the city, and I could have went in that direction, but, I was sent in this direction and I get to pay it forward. And I'm so excited, the modern wealth building formula, the word is getting out there, internationally now. And it's exciting, to see, my favorite movie, Pay It Forward, coming true with some of the stuff I've done,
Yeah. So you just mentioned your book. Like what caused you to decide to write such a book?
I was sitting there in, after 2008, when Lehman Brothers crashed, I thought I was out of real estate forever. I was trying to buy Stewart's root beer. I actually was in contract to buy it. Fast forward, to 2012, I went back into New York City construction and started small. I did a brownstone in Brooklyn, got my confidence back, And
you did a number of wholesaling too, right? At that time?
Yeah. Well, so I went back into the city and, I did something that I always wanted to do. I went back into the city and I cracked the union code, right? So I was able to build skyscrapers non-union. And I actually, from 2014 to 16, had a concrete company and we built 300 units. I was partners with a company, CMA. So we were doing the construction management and the superstructure concrete. And then in 2016, at the end of 2016, I was just, I don't want to work like this anymore. I don't want to work hard. And, New York City construction, it's, everybody's, it's like swimming with the sharks every day. Everybody's nibbling at your ankle. So in 17, I partnered with a guy and we created Flipping New Jersey and Flipping USA because I knew I had a formula. I had done the $17 million assisted living. I had used the formula in New York City. I said, let me test it with residential. So in 17 and half of 18, we really knocked it out of the park. We did, in that 1 year, we did 137 deals. In that first half year, we kind of cranked it up. Then we did 137 deals. And after that, I was like, wow, I gotta write this down. So in 18, I started thinking, like, how do I write a book? And, I inquired with someone who was a best-selling author. And he's like, yeah, well, the first thing you need to do is just write down all the big ideas and then come up with a table of contents. So, by 18, I had this all done and it took a year to write. So in 19, I finished the book and it really put it all together. And it was, the modern wealth building formula on how I syndicate real estate with, how I syndicated real estate with no money and no experience and how I continue to do it. And, try to give some people a little bit of a recipe, from a mindset standpoint and from a pre-game standpoint and how you could do it, with any type of experience, I mean, I was a builder, but whether it all comes down to people, right? So whether you're an accountant, a builder, a show host, whatever, it all comes down to just getting people together, and I learned that after losing a lot of money because of my big mouth at the table, thinking it was all about being smarter and having all these fancy degrees. And it wasn't about that at all. It was about creating that deep emotional rapport and about, understanding what's important to them and what they care about, listening for and reliably delivering what's beneficial to everybody, and stop, being about myself. You got to lose the ego, Ken Van Liew, that's what it came down to, really,
Right. So just to remind everybody, head over to Ken's website, 11millionairesecrets.com. I'll make sure to have that link in the show notes. So what's your focus now, Ken? Like when you're in real estate investing, are you sticking with the Flipping USA type model, or are you developing? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, great question. And just one last thing I wanted for the listeners. You could also just go to kenvanliew.com and there's a free complimentary session if anybody wants to talk further. And to answer your specific question, I did the residential for a short time and I put it down. I have a lot of residential students. So I now created a program called Financial Freedom Protocol that teaches how I did everything at Flippin' USA and Flippin' NJ. And what I did after I wrote the book in 2019, I went and decided I was finishing, but it had a glitch with COVID. We were doing a major penthouse for a hedge fund celebrity in New York City when COVID shut down. So what I called the pivot was I got to build skyscrapers horizontally. So I came to Jersey and we bought, a little under 50 acres. And then that led to us acquiring close to another 50 acres in North Carolina. We have some stuff in Texas, some stuff in Florida. And we really moved into the development aspect, multi-use development. I'm this close to getting approval to a CBS. So we're going to be breaking ground in CBS. We're doing some affordable housing. We have self-storage, hotels, residential, wellness centers, medical office buildings, and just trying to create something big.
Sure. So is it mostly commercial then, or is it mixed use?
It's really mixed use. The one project I'm doing in North Carolina now is up over 150 residential units. It's a mixed use community, creating a destination in a community outside, Raleigh and Wake Forest, in that area. And, so I'm very focused on the real estate side, and part of my pay it forward process is I created the global real estate investment enterprise, which, when people talk to me, I'll tell them more about it. But it's just a lifetime program. So if someone's serious about Ken Van Liew, I give them the New Yorker, once you join, you never leave, and, type of thing, once you get in, you never get out, but we have a lifetime program for, to ensure that people are successful in real estate. And what I call it is an ecosystem. So people join the ecosystem, they immediately get relationship equity beyond, the value that people get at most places, and they can't leave until, they decide themselves, because they're part of a community that makes sure they succeed in real estate investing.
Yeah. No, talk a little bit about that. That is one of the things that I've found, that when you get involved in a community like this, how it's probably one of the best, if not best investments you can make.
Yeah. I learned that for a long time, because it's, and I'll tell you all about it. I've watched, this, I call it the guru business over the years, and people that are my friends, and I have nothing against them, and I looked at that business when real estate was crashing, and I got into it a little bit, and I created some programs, and then I started to ask myself the question, which my friend Tim Mai, says all the time, are you measuring your percentage of success with your students? Because, if you're going to have a coaching business and you're just doing it to make money, why are you really doing it? Right. It's not, you're not throwing a stone in the water and letting the ripple move out, So after I finished the book, I worked with probably 30 one-on-one students to figure out what is the runway for the takeoff, right? Because there's all different kinds of people in life. There's all different types of people, personalities, let alone careers, let alone levels of expertise, and where they all want to head. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a matrix, in linear algebra that I took, So how do I create something that may be close to good with everybody? And I found that, you have to create a measuring accountability, which is the 3 times a month, 2 hours in front of Ken Van Liew. And my question is, where are you stuck? And what's keeping you from doing it on your own? And where have you been the last couple of weeks? And how have you been? How's family? Because we're creating a family. And that, and are you measuring, is what's going to keep you in the game. And that goes on for a lifetime. So if you don't show up for a month or two, you're getting a notice like, hey, is everything okay? So we set an accountability, and those meetings are friendly, but all about execution, right? It's a friendly accountability. And we're executing, like, where are you at? Are you writing your letter of intent today? Are you putting your bank package together? Are you looking for properties? Because in real estate, you're finding, funding, and facilitating. It's 3 things: finding, funding, and facilitating. You're somewhere in that process. You can improve each one of those processes. There's, as Jack Canfield says, there's continuous and never-ending improvement. So now if you have this all set up, where I've created the course, Financial Freedom Protocol is the entire Flippin' New Jersey, Flippin' USA residential manual. It shows you how to wholesale, fix, and flip on steroids. I created Modern Wealth Building Formula, which is commercial, residential, multi-use, everything, right? Because it's syndication, how to do it with other people's money with no experience. Follow this procedure, find, fund, and facilitate. What's your pre-game? How do you do it? And then I created Real Estate Development Made Simple, which was my original 8-figure deals with no money down. But that's the cream of the crème, cream of the, I can't even speak. I have Invisalign here. But that's $100,000 value of everything I've ever done, over 800 pages in 14 hours. So I give all this away. So anybody that joins the enterprise gets everything that Ken Van Liew has created his entire life. The 11 Millionaire Secrets, the 8 Golden Nuggets, my book, my 60 Secrets to Success and Pitfalls to Avoid, and the 11 Secrets, Financial Freedom Protocol, Modern Wealth Building Formula, Real Estate Development Made Simple. Next year, we're doing Real Estate Mastery University. I give it all away because I want them to be successful. What's going to make me happy is bring me a project that you need help with funding. Maybe we do it together if it meets the criteria. But everybody's moving the ball forward. Everybody's creating opportunities for everybody. The world becomes a better place. That all came through my landmark worldwide training. I was an introduction leader. I did Tony Robbins, Dale Carnegie, just trying to be a better place. My dad, I love them. They're both, my parents, thank God, are alive at 87. But my dad was hands-on. He climbed telephone poles. He pumped gas at night. My mom was a bank teller. He said, go to college. That's going to, make you do well, but it didn't teach you how to make money. It was all that extra work, and that's a little bit about, I think I answered your question. I went off on a little tangent there. We talked about tangents. We're both good at going on tangents. So
yes, we both are. And I thought that was an awesome tangent. So, you've talked to a number of people now getting into real estate, and you probably have taught and trained and one-on-ones with, I don't know how many people at this point. What is one of the most common recurring things that people have to work through in order to get things going?
Great question. Because I see it more now that I'm in the group, and, some of the exercises that I do is, everybody, wants to become a millionaire. And yes, I want everybody to become a millionaire. But the first thing, I'm like, how much money do you need to pay all your bills, and then work it from there? So let's look at that first. And you know what? I just changed my attention there. Give me the question one more time. So I
what's the most common hurdle that people have to work through?
So the first thing I do is I tell them, I want them to figure out what their perfect Tuesday is, in addition to what they have to make to replace their current income, right? So that it doesn't look like a 1,200-pound gorilla, right? Because the biggest hurdle, and the reason I went off on the tangent and as Tony says, broke my own pattern, is people's belief system around money. I grew up, on Sundays with my uncle who, grew up in an immigrant family who cracked on the Wall Street, listening to my dad, blue collar worker, saying, white collar workers are no good. So my belief system around money was that it didn't grow on trees, and that it was hard to, and most people have absolutely no belief system that they can actually create a story and a compelling gravity pull to enhance someone to invest money with them in real estate. And I prove that to them. And then, I really find that people aren't quite sure how to present themselves. So I have this whole unique way of presenting themselves. And then I go back to the measuring, right? And the accountability. I find a lot of my students, I ask them, what's keeping you from doing it themselves? There's usually something outside of what they're trying to do blocking them. So, a lot of times, I may just see, whether it's a confidence level, whether it was something that happened from the past, and believe that sometimes I call it's a hairball that doesn't get coughed up initially, right? Mm-hmm. So, I get them to go through what are your goals and what is your perfect Tuesday? Not when you're on a vacation at Club Med, what's just a perfect Tuesday? You get to wake up at 9 o'clock, go to the spa, look at your investments, look at some new investments, look at what your investment criteria is to syndicate, right? Instead of going, oh, should I start in wholesaling or should I start in commercial? Just look at real estate as an investment and providing an investor who has his money in the bank, not making any money, that you given him the ability to earn some interest on his money, and, I think most of it's mindset, and then I get some guys that come in like gangbusters, and, I'm just like, make sure you fill this gap and fill that gap. So, it's either the people that are, beginning and just don't have the belief system to add an extra zero on the number. I'm kind of like getting straight. And then for other guys where I'm saying, hey, just hold on a minute, because you're missing some systems here. And there's going to be a big hole in your boat when you get out into the deep seas,
Mm-hmm.
And those guys, I really tell them like, hey, I got your back, but you need to screw this bolt a little tighter, and you need to do this, or that's going to give way, and it's I guess it all leads to one thing: guiding them to get through the goalpost so they don't go out of bounds and lose money.
Sure. You mentioned early on is trying to find, everybody wants that to be that millionaire, but you start with what are your current expenses today? That's when I first started, I actually had that on my bathroom mirror. And every time I'd pick up another cash flowing asset, I got to subtract that. So I always had that running total, and I had to see it every day.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Yeah, I was thinking, I had a picture of a really physical guy on my wall for years. Every time I sat on my bathroom toilet, I would look at him, and I eventually got in good shape.
Yeah. Well, it's those milestones, that achievable milestones that seem to help, at least for me. I went kind of through a weight loss thing myself, and instead of going, okay, I'm going to lose 100 pounds, it was always like the next 10 or the next 20, instead of, it's just something that makes it more achievable and easier to reach.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, this has been an awesome conversation. I can't thank you enough. And I have a feeling that you and I can just keep going. But one more time, 11millionairesecrets.com, kenvanliew.com. I'll make sure to have both of those links in the show notes. Ken has offered some great opportunities for everybody here. But Ken, before I let you go, I usually end with, is there a question you wished I would have asked you here tonight?
Yeah, I think one would be, I didn't talk really about, you could relate it to a pre-shot routine in golf. I guess, what is it that I do every day that I believe makes me most successful?
Well, let's go down that road. I have a feeling you have something prepared for that.
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking about is what I found is, it really comes down to, my morning routine. And now I also do an evening routine. I found them to be extremely helpful. In the morning, I have a get ready. I have an exercise routine, meditation, and I usually don't fuel my body till a little bit later in the afternoon. I mean, a little bit later in the morning. I'm into the intermittent fasting. At night, I have a gratitude thing. But one of the things that I found is each day I start off with three items of gratitude and 3 mission critical things that I want to work on. And they're always related to building relationships, taking care of my health and wellness, because you need unlimited energy, which then will thrive my business, and measuring that at the end of the day. So I do an as planned versus an as built, just in a very friendly manner to see how it went. Did things move around? And then I measure, how was my day on a personal level on 1 to 10, and how is it on a business? And I do this thing called quality quantifying. So, today my personal was, I'd say, a 7, because, I fell on the ice 2 days ago and I couldn't walk today because my back was stiff. It was 8 because, I ran late and I missed an appointment, like little things like that. Nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't my 10, so it's really about measuring, planning, journaling, and, and time blocking, I think, is key, and that's what it's all about.
This is one of those things that if you would have asked me 5 years ago regarding doing all of this stuff, the journaling and the meditation and the mindset exercises, I would have said it was a bunch of hooey. And now I'm the biggest proponent of it. I mean, this is exactly what I keep bringing it up. But when it comes to your mindset and getting some help with it, like I said, I've mentioned earlier, it's probably the best investment somebody can make.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have so much with my success in the enterprise where, young one young woman, 24, is now up to her fourth property. One guy's doing $80 million in projects. Another guy's doing his new developments. And, just beginners getting started. One guy he wants to build 14 dance studios in the major cities across, and that's the kind of stuff that juices me, And, that's what the enterprise does, is it gets people to just build their dreams, and I get to help.
Well, with all of your milestones, would you almost go as far as to saying that seeing some of your students have these achievements, has that been like a highlight of your career?
I'll tell you, it really has. Out of all the things in life that have given me fulfillment, this is definitely at the top of the list, And then the other thing, you probably read, which is, I always have like cards or coins in my hands. I'm a magician. So, magic is something that I've always, been passionate about, and you got to have fun. You got to have fun.
Right. Well, Ken, I really appreciate again your time. I hope you'll consider coming back again sometime.
I definitely will. And I'm going to be in touch next week so we can just chat about all kinds of things. I had a lot of fun today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, thank you, sir.
Sounds great. Make it a great day.